Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. It's 4 minutes after the hour. I was trying to wait till at least 5 minutes after the hour to start to get some more folks coming in, but thank you for joining. You are free to turn on your cameras or not. It's totally up to you. But welcome to You, Me, and Sacred Birth, a virtual book reading and Q&A discussion series, part 4. We'll be going over chapter 4, bodily and decisional autonomy. And our theme for today is Our Bodies, Our Births, Black autonomy as a political and moral imperative. Yes, so this time I did not automatically turn your cameras off or your microphones off. So please mute yourself. Again, welcome to session 4, You, Me, and Sacred Birth. Um, Our tech and specialist assistant today will be Julia Scott. So she will be copying and pasting information throughout the chat. Hopefully you will see just kind of the welcome, the title, as well as the instructions to participate virtually. Again, I'm Dr. Karen Antoinette Scott, Chief Black Feminist Physician Scientist, founder and CEO of Birth and Culture Rigor, and you are joining session 4, chapter 4, bodily decisional autonomy of the You, Me, and Sacred Birth virtual book reading and Q&A discussion series. And we are also supported by Cheyenne Varner of The Educated Birth. And this is just kind of their little time for the little commercial. The Educated Birth, where they support you as you support parents with inclusive teaching tools for pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. You can follow them at The Educated Birth on social media. You can also find their beautiful, inclusive graphics. This was the first time for me that I saw in 2018 images of Black and brown folks with broad noses, broad full lips, kinky curly hair, even the image of the person in the lower left corner with vitiligo. Also, for me, with Cheyenne Barner's work that actually showed the first images of a sagittal section, or like when you look at the body sideways and like split it in half, and we're to look at that in terms of like anatomy or anatomically, we call it a sagittal view. She was the first person to do that with the Black pregnant woman with an Afro puff, broad nose, lips, hips, and with a Black fetus inside. So that's who actually should really be given credit. I know other credit goes to um, I think he's a medical student, maybe he's graduated, but it really was Cheyenne who's been doing this for a very long time. So special shout out to her. Please follow her work and order any of her tools for your clients or patients or your loved ones. So we're going to start. Everything that we do is virtual, so you can participate. We use time visual data visualization. You can see your responses. So this is going to be interactive, where you can share your thoughts and perspectives throughout the session, even during the reading. You can you can type in your questions, your feedback as I'm reading, and it will all populate on the screen. So if you go to www.menti.com, enter the code 51519354. It's on the screen. It's also in your chat. There's the QR code. And I do want to say, welcome, Brother Ken, Mr. Ken Harris, to this session from the Emo Consulting. I have asked him to join to provide some perspectives during the Q&A. It's all going to be real, non-rehearsed. Thank you for showing up, brother. I am going to read a little bit more today because I wanted to make sure you understood what I learned from 36 Black mothers in Los Angeles and Oakland who talked about specifically the ways in which they assert and or protect their bodily and decisional autonomy. And they, in the readings today, will focus on the obvious, which is a birth plan, but we're actually going to talk about the role of husbands, specifically Black husbands, but also just Black male figures in the role of husband or partner or grandparent, just the ways in which we have either erased or eroded or excluded their participation, their presence in mitigating harm, right, against Black mothers and birthing people or Black babies that comes through the way we provide care, particularly in hospital settings. So we're going to do how we start off with each session. We'll do a little bit of who's in the room, what your thoughts are, your perspectives. You'll type your response. If you can open a second browser or pull out a smart device, and we'll start with something easy like using two letters, abbreviations, what state are you located in? I'll look in the lower right-hand corner. I'll see the number of people who have logged in and then who responds, not who, but just when a person responds. And then I'll keep going through. But we'll ask these questions. You'll see everybody's response. It is anonymous. We're not going to know that it's you unless you come off of mute and say, that was me. So please feel free to share what you feel. If you must use an explicative, you can put the first letter and some asterisks. But otherwise, please speak and type, type freely. And if you feel that you want to say something aloud, if you can use the raise your hand and we'll call on you. So thank you, first responders. Thank you for participating. We see folks from Connecticut, California, and Michigan. And the next question is, just briefly share kind of a grounding activity. I woke up today feeling grateful for, and I should say I'm doing this from Tennessee, TN. So I woke up today feeling grateful for, and again, this is just a way for you to get acclimated or comfortable or more familiar with Mentimeter. So you can type in your response on your smart device and it will come through. I think there's a limit of about 250 something characters, but you can always add another response. And if you are joining, thank you so much. Welcome to You, Me, and Sacred Birth, the virtual book reading and Q&A discussion series for part 4. We're focusing on bodily and decisional autonomy. In the chat box, you hopefully will see just a welcome statement and then how you can participate virtually. You can also just look at the top of the screen. It says join at menti.com and then use this vote code 51519354. We are just kind of getting a sense of who's in the room, your perspectives, your feelings, and thoughts about some concepts. And we're just doing our grounding activity right now. So thank you, first responder. I woke up today feeling grateful for, let me move my little boxes in my ways so I can see. Um, Feeling especially grateful for social media and the ability to connect with different people across the world. Yes, I woke up this morning feeling grateful for my life and freedom to give myself the day off. Absolutely. And just grateful for the summertime. Thank you all for participating. And again, for those who have joined us, we're at menti.com. You can open a second web browser or your smart device and click in the code that's at the top of the screen and in your chat. I woke up feeling grateful just for being able to wake up and um, grateful for um, grateful for still having the desire to show up as my most authentic self and share with you all today. So I really appreciate you all taking time to be with us today. The next question, I hope to gain. Now, previously you could use phrases. Now I would like to use a word cloud. So we can use one word to share what you hope to gain from today's session. And with this word cloud, the word that is used most frequently will be in the center. And then words that are not used as frequently will kind of be around the words. So the further you go out of the center, those words are not used as frequently, but they are still of value. So we'll get to see those words. And if there are any words that you use that someone else has used, that word will be in the center and will continue to grow in size. So first responder, that word will be really large. Thank you, first responder, for saying that you hope to gain understanding. What are some other things that you hope to gain today using one word, if possible? Seems like the next responder also added is understanding. I do believe you can participate more than once. So if you want to add another one-word response, you are encouraged to do so. I hope to gain just community, more community from today's session. Exactly, community, yes. Any other one-word responses? Clarity, absolutely. And does anyone else want to add their one word for which represents what they hope to gain from today's session? And this will stay open, this platform, so you can still go back into this later on in the day. If, as I progress and move further along and you don't get to respond, you still can. So we talked about what you hope to gain. Then what do you hope to give today during today's session? Using one word, what do you hope to gain? Excuse me, what do you hope to give? That was my fault. What do you hope to give? For me, I hope to give, well, the one word that's coming to mind is comfort. I don't know where that comes from, but that's what was resonating with me. So I hope to give comfort to you all during today's session. Thank you, first responder, for sharing presence. Yes, love, tools. What else do you hope to give today during the session? We'll wait for one more and then we'll keep going. This just gets you again comfortable with this platform, Minty.com, that you can utilize virtually and allow for people to participate without having to speak aloud sometimes. You can also share your data that you gather. You can ask a question, a multiple choice question, a one word cloud. With the multiple choice questions, you can have people choose one answer and you can visualize that data in real time with a bar graph, a pie chart, all the ways that Mentimeter kind of works. So here's an example of another question. I've kind of forced you to respond in a certain way because now I'm providing the answers. So this would be like a multiple choice question. You get to choose one. And if your role is not listed, you would choose that. So here, my primary role in my daily work is what? Are you an advocate, administrator, practitioner, research? My role is not listed, and that's okay. But this is what would happen if we were to force you to choose a role, and then we quantify or use numbers or percentages to represent what your response would be. So 5 people are now enrolled. If you are joining us, welcome. It's all good. Kind of get yourself situated virtually. Please join us at www.menti.com. All of this is at the top of the screen where you can enter the vote code and just work your way through and catch up with us. 3 out of 5 people have responded. So then you get to see, right, that 2/3 of you all are advocates. You identify in that way based on the choices that I provided to you. 1/3 said my role is not listed. Again, this is a bar graph. You can demonstrate the responses quantitatively with percentages. The highest column, right, represents the most represented response. You can also show different colors. And I'm going to keep going for time. You could also ask this in an open-ended way, right? So if someone's role was not provided to them, right, in the question design, you can give them the opportunity to explain more with this open-ended or qualitative question. So tell us briefly about your primary role in your work life. So you can describe your role briefly. You can use phrases or whole sentences as your response. As you complete your response, the screen will fill up with the responses. So again, tell us briefly about your primary role in your work life. And you don't have to say a whole lot. Don't feel pressure. For me, I am in my primary role. I serve as the chief Black feminist physician scientist, founding CEO, and owner of Birth and Culture Rigor, where our work builds the capacity of community and systems in improving patient care experiences, particularly for Black mothers and birthing people and their chosen and given kin, using different tools in quality improvement and implementation science. So thank you, first responder. You're a doctoral student, college instructor. Someone else is a full spectrum doula and a reproductive justice advocate. They are interested in providing care, especially for the Black community. Thank you also, a responder. You're a research associate. I'm a consultant in primary work life and just launched a new nonprofit focused on advocacy and equity. And again, this allows us to get right better breadth and depth, better richness, more robust and detailed descriptions of your role than the forced way that I did when I did the multiple choice question. I'll keep going, but you can continue to answer. Another kind of open ended question: why are you joining us today? Why are you joining us today? Again, you can use full sentences or short phrases. Um, and you can enter, I think, at least 3 different times, and you're only limited by the characters, which I think is like 235, but I could be wrong. But it will stop you when you keep going trying to enter. So if you have more to say, then you just enter another response. Of course, I am joining today because I want to continue to build the public's awareness of the work that I did with 36 Black mothers in Oakland and Los Angeles, and listening to them and leveraging and translating their stories into a novel and nuanced Black mother driven quality framework called Sacred, where Sacred is an acronym and each letter stands for the quality domain that emerged from Black mothers' experiences and their expectations and their expressions of pregnancy and childbirth, particularly in hospital settings. So thank you, first responders. You're joining primarily to be in community with my sister and others, as well as to support moving this tremendous work forward. Thank you. Another response: as a full spectrum doula, I'm joining today in order to become more knowledgeable about Black people and their experience in healthcare, all to not become complicit in harm. Amen and Ashe. Thank you very much. We'll wait a little bit more for other responses to come in. Again, this is our format. When you enter the space, I introduce myself. We go over the title and theme for today's session. We talk about educated birth. You get to meet or be aware that Julia Scott is our marketing and tech specialist. And then we do kind of this grounding work with Mentimeter, to get a sense of where you are with how you're feeling about yourself, about coming to this space and this event. But then also, I do elicit your thoughts and feelings around certain concepts that we'll discuss today so that you can get a sense of what you all kind of believe or hold as valuable truths to you all. And then we'll see what the Black mothers in Oakland and Los Angeles tell us. Thank you. Another responder: to understand Black maternal health in more multifaceted way with the expert, Dr. Scott. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, Again, you can continue to respond. This link will be open. This platform will stay open until tomorrow morning. Some of you all have done this with me before, but using just one word. Identify one word that comes to mind when describing mothers and birthing people. Again, whatever one word you use, it will be visualized in real time. And I've chosen a word cloud for this. And so the word that's used most frequently and anonymously will be in the center and bigger. Thank you, first responder, saying power. And then other words that you use will kind of be around that more dominant word. Thank you. A second responder: cherished. Again, one word that comes to mind when describing mothers and birthing people. And there's no right or wrong per se, just is like what your thoughts are. Anyone else want to share? Love. We'll wait for one more. And if you want to enter another word, you absolutely are invited to do that. If not, okay. So identify one word that comes to mind when thinking about childbirth and hospital settings. What one word that you feel just in your intuitively feel as a word that describes childbirth in hospital settings? Dangerous, I get it. Medicalized, absolutely. Risk. Keep going. I'm going to try to find my little box so I can see if I can see who's here. Oh, I can do this. Ah, okay, good. Oh, did I do something weird? Okay, I am so sorry. I should have just not been playing around. Let me go back to present. Here we go. I am not going to touch my screen. So thank you first for the people who responded. We see dangerous, medicalized, risk, unprotected. We'll keep going. What word comes to mind now when thinking about patient autonomy during childbirth? What one word comes to mind when thinking about patient autonomy during childbirth? And this could be childbirth in any setting, but one word comes to mind when thinking about childbirth. Compromise. I have not yet seen that before. Thank you very much. And when you first see the word, yes, it has the potential to inform, influence what you think. Still put whatever word that you want because it represents what you think, what you feel, your truth. The words don't have to always align with each other or agree with one another, but again, just wanting to get a sense of what this group um, feels that what autonomy, patient autonomy, not necessarily what it means, but when you think about patient autonomy in childbirth, what words come up? So, yeah, compromised, tenuous, dishonored, deserved. Any other one words that come to mind before we keep going? We have like a couple more of these questions and I'll get into the reading. I did make today's session a little bit longer so I could read a little bit longer, but also so I could go from the reading to really um, having, Brother Ken Harris also share their thoughts and what you all think as well. Dishonored, coerced, absolutely. So here and now is an opportunity for you to share your meaning. So chapter 4 from my book is titled Bodily and Decisional Autonomy. In your own words, what do you think that means? Again, just to get a sense of what the audience thinks, because we are going to be reading, I'll be reading from my chapter to share what 36 Black mothers and birthing people told me around this concept and why I decided to name my chapter Bodily and Decisional Autonomy and not just autonomy. So thank you, first responder, power to determine the fate of a community. Ah, Shay and amen. Yes. What else? Anybody else have any my body, my choice? Absolutely. Any other ways that you would want to give meaning to this concept of bodily and decisional autonomy? And also if you're like, I don't know, that can be a response too. Or I'm still thinking about it, or I'm here to learn, like whatever you are led to share as a response, honor your participation and where you are in this journey. You may not yet know. Anyone else want to share a meaning, their meaning in their own words, what bodily and decisional autonomy means? Opportunity to exercise my rights and determining anything and everything that happens to my body. Yes, thank you. You three people. Again, this will be open, so you still have opportunities to add this. So I asked you about the meaning. In my work, I use kind of this M, like if not a framework or a methodology and a method. I always want to understand the meaning of a word, how it manifests or show up, how it can be measured, how it's monitored, and then how is it mitigated, right? That is, if you follow my work, I'm always thinking across these M's. So I asked for your thoughts on the meaning of a word. Now, how do you believe bodily and decisional autonomy manifest or show up during hospital birth? So now I'm asking for you to move from giving me a meaning to a manifestation, right? Like, how do you know that bodily and decisional autonomy are being honored, protected, preserved, upheld, amplified during a specific space in the hospital. Birth plans being accepted, absolutely. Any other ways that you can think about how bodily and decisional autonomy show up in hospital births? When those around you are listening and responding to you, being honored. Yes, reports of a positive birth experience due to having control of the experience, honored and respected. Yes. I'll wait for one more. Any other ways that you believe bodily and decisional autonomy manifest or show up during hospital births? Okay. So the last one I think is yes. So here you have an opportunity to kind of expand on what you've been thinking and writing. If you can describe how Black mothers and birthing people leverage people, places, or things to assert and or protect their bodily and decisional autonomy. You already named one thing. You said a birth plan. Are there other examples of people, places, or things that Black mothers and birthing people leverage to assert and or protect their bodily and decisional autonomy? Enlisting support from medulla, absolutely. What are other ways? Again, people, places, or things. And I promise it's not a trick question. Slow down the process, yes. Who are some of the people that you think, the Black mothers and birthing people outside of a doula, the Black mothers and birthing people, and I say leverage because I didn't want to use the word use as is a form of manipulation, but how do they leverage perhaps other people, either in the space in real time or virtually, or even places that they leverage to assert and or protect their bodily and decisional autonomy? We'll see if anyone else has one more. A birthing center. Yeah. So keep thinking about this, right? Keep thinking. And last, what one word comes to mind when thinking, when describing Black mothers and birthing people? The first time I asked you about mothers and birthing people, this time I'm asking if what word comes to mind when describing Black mothers and birthing people? Revolutionary. I have never seen that word. Thank you, first responder. Love. Any other strength? Any other one words come to mind? Let's see if anyone else has one more word, and then we'll go to the I love that. Transcendent. Yes. Amen, Ashe. Resistance. Yes, absolutely. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. You can still add more. So I have my final question. I know I said there was those were the last. I was not telling the truth. This is just me to get a sense of where people are. I'm adding this question now to a lot of my work, just not the book series. I'm asking about your prior experience about a topic and how you address that topic in your work. And then you have kind of four responses that will allow me to see kind of your level of either readiness or your level of expertise. What is your prior experience with addressing obstetrical racism in your work? Are you at the never, no prior experience? Are you at the I have an expressed desire and an interest to learn? Are you at I have current experience with evidence of use? Or are you at current experience with evidence of use and you're known as a model for others? There's no judgment, just for me to get a sense of where you all are. Are you closer on the pink red side, right? Current experience, you're a model for others, or are you more along the blue yellow side? And that's just for this Mentimeter, that those are the colors they chose. Are you never experienced it, or you have an interest and desire to learn? It's like 5 out of 7 have responded. Thank you so much for this. I have another question like this, but now it's specifically to my work. Shout out to Dr. Donna Ian Davis. What is your prior experience with applying the Sacred Birth Quality Framework in your work? Again, the same type of level of readiness, expertise, experience. To the left, never, no prior experience, expressed desire, interest to learn, or more about current experience with evidence of use, current experience with evidence of use, and you're known as a model to others. And thank you all for replying. So this kind of it's an appropriate response because Donna Ian's work was first published in December 2018, and my book was just published in December 2024, so 6 years later. And I started talking about sacred birth around 2019. So this makes sense. But thank you. And then I put the most sensitive questions around race, gender, and ethnicity at the end. So again, doing this also helps people who are interested in survey design. You put some of your more sensitive questions at the end so that this doesn't cause people to be either re-traumatized or traumatized and to stop participating. So I center Blackness. So everything is either you're Black or you're non-Black because usually we are not centered. So Black or African American, Black multiracial, non-Black multiracial, a non-Black. And here you're seeing a different way to visualize the data, a pie graph, right? So the 4 of 7 people, you responded. Thank you, 100% Black African American. This one's about ethnicity, yes or no. Again, it's a pie graph. If you identify as Hispanic or Latin A, again, you see the responses in real time. And then this is about gender. I am forcing you to choose from these options, which are not as broken out as they could be because you wouldn't be able to see the responses. So you have gender nonconforming, non-binary, gender queer, gender fluid, woman, man, cisgender, cis or transgender, all in those 2 categories. Woman or man, and then my gender is not identified. Again, you see the data visualized in real time with the bar graph. So I'm going to read now. Do people have any questions? I'm going to read from my book. You can post your questions, your thoughts, your feelings throughout the time that I'm reading. So you don't forget them. You don't have to wait to the end. And then at the end of me reading, we can talk this through. And then I'll invite Brother Ken Harris to come on and let's have a little conversation. So I'm going to start again. Feel free to type your thoughts and comments while I am reading, and we'll go through that. And if you can type them into Mentimeter, it's easier for all of us to see and for me to see than putting them in the chat box, which I can't always easily see without disrupting the screen and just causing some tech issues. So I'm going to start. Chapter 4, Bodily and Decisional Autonomy. So I was completely terrified, thinking I'm going to have a 3-pound baby. Then they kept saying, like, oh, your baby's going to be too small to come through the birth canal. Like he's going to be too tired. He's not going to have enough strength to get through. So because he was so small, so we should we do a C-section? I was like, I don't even want to be induced, let alone have a C-section. But that was one thing they kept pushing, like, oh, you should get the C-section because he's too small and he's not going to have the strength to get through the birth canal because it's a very tiring for him because he's so little. That's from Kendra, a Black mother in Los Angeles who birthed her baby into the world through her vaginal birth canal, weighing 5 pounds, 6 ounces despite all of those things that she was being told. And these are not the real names of these mothers, they're pseudonyms. So, a common violation of care quality enacted against Black mothers by hospital systems, teams, and individual obstetric physicians, nurses, and staff during childbirth hospitalization is the use of medical coercion, abuse, and ceremonies of degradation, manifestations of obstetric racism. to undermine Black women's free will or autonomy. The most dominant scenario explored during the focus groups in Oakland and Los Angeles was repeated violations of Black mothers' autonomy over their bodies during care provision and decision making about cesarean births. Most Black mothers shared narratives of perpetual attempts and successes in eroding their agency, the free will of power to make decisions or successfully achieve a desired goal with optimal options, resources, and conditions, or self efficacy, belief in one's capacity to make decisions or achieve a desired goal, and securing their actual birth and birth experience they desire and expect. In the process of examining how well or how poorly hospital physicians and nurses in obstetrics care safeguard patient autonomy through the expressions and experiences of 36 Black mothers, I uncover the dominant practice of coerced or forced inductions and cesarean births through a careful orchestration of hospital team language and behaviors and manipulation of communication grounded in obstetric racism. First, hospital physicians identify a suspected, but not always definitive, pathological diagnosis during the antepartum or prenatal period prior to labor, which may or may not increase the risk for an adverse outcome impacting the Black mother, fetus, and or placenta. Second, the hospital obstetricians and maternal fetal medicine specialists document and disseminate healthcare information about the suspected pathology and its potential clinical sequelae during patient sign-outs and handoffs and throughout electronic health records. The consequence of this second step is the mobilization of powerful hospital personnel, policies, practices, protocols, and procedures to synchronize all their efforts in the weaponization of the fears of Black mothers as being seen and treated as unfit and incapable of protecting their children, particularly the unborn, developing, and dependent Black baby inside their Black womb. One primary catalyst facilitating this insidious chain of medically coercive, abusive, and forced processes and chain of events is the racist praxis of biological determinism. The unchecked practice of disproportionately recommending and performing labor inductions or cesarean births by hospital based obstetricians and perinatal nurses reinforces the trope that the most dangerous place for a Black baby is inside the womb of a Black mother. On Friday, February 18, 2011, an anti abortion group based in Dallas, Texas, Life Always, set up a billboard in Soho on the corner of the Avenue of the Americas and Watt Street, a half mile from a Planned Parenthood center. Again, we're in Dallas, Texas. The anti abortion billboard stood several stories high outside of the Holland Tunnel, declaring the most dangerous place for an African American is in the womb, featuring a young Black girl in a pink dress with a bow in her hair beneath its message. Life Always initiated the campaign in New York in February with intentionality, coordination, and clarity of purpose during the simultaneous local and national observation of Black History Month to highlight the disproportionate number of abortions among Black women and gender expansive individuals. The malicious, feckless, and myopic interpretation of the statistics and use of the anti abortion billboard without historical and structural context extend beyond the purposes of this book. What must be addressed in this chapter and throughout the book is the presence and permeation of the anti Black racism and misogynoir embedded in and behind the message, and movements spearheaded by the far right religious dogmatic conservatives to control, constrain, and revoke the human right to bodily and decisional autonomy of all people, particularly Black women. Prior to the events in New York City, the Georgia Right to Life and Radiance Foundation spent $20,000 to post 65 anti Black racist and anti Black sexist anti abortion billboards in predominantly Black neighborhoods in Atlanta on February 5th, 2010, with the image of a sad looking Black male child and the message Black children are an endangered species. Sister Song, a Southern based national membership organization that builds and strengthens capacities and strategic coordinated actions of an effective network of individuals and organizations to improve institutional policies and systems that impact the reproductive lives of marginalized communities, immediately took action, analyzed the current political movement, convened a partnership of Black women's organizations, and formed the National Trust Black Women Partnership in 2010 to combat the accusations and lies blaming Black women for genocide by obtaining abortions. Within the first year of existence, the Trust Black Women Partnership defeated the billboards and a concomitant bill to restrict abortion. By joining the Black Lives Matter movement, the Trust Black Women Partnership continues to mobilize the reproductive justice movement through training, capacity building, advocacy, and organizing of Black women and people and active allies to disrupt norms and narratives rooted in misogynoir and create and spread power affirming, activating, and actualizing images and messages of Black women. One must wrestle with the reality that hospital administrators, physicians, nurses, clinical administrative leaders, and staff represent members of society who hold particular values and beliefs that then influence how they socialize, organize, and move about within and across various formal and informal social, cultural, religious, and political groups. Consequently, hospital teams of administrators, physicians, and nurses engage in a pattern of coordinated, unrelenting, and pernicious language and behavior consistent with undermining patient autonomy, agency, and self efficacy by first causing Black women to doubt their innate power and potential to birth based on their desires and dreams. The medical industrial complex pathologizes birthing while Black by translating the physiology of Black birth into processes of risk identification, stratification, and mitigation. In the medicalization and pathologization of Black reproducing bodies and Black births, hospital teams and individual nurses and physicians work in concert as a system to offer one cure to the peculiar disease of Black pregnancy, a medical intervention that disrupts the duration of the pregnancy with a labor induction or cesarean birth. Thus, Blackness becomes synonymous with death and dying in narratives created and controlled by academic centers, hospital systems, public health departments, insurance companies, medical and nursing professional organizations, and the media, whereby physicians and nurses play the heroes in a war against the villains, emancipated and liberated Black reproducing bodies. Reading and rereading and interpreting the text of hospital birth narratives shared by 36 Black mothers in Oakland and Los Angeles reads more like movie scripts that mix genres of horror and war. In making sense of the lived experiences of Black mothers through text, the battleground is the mind or free will of Black mothers. In healthcare, every patient possesses the human right to bodily and decisional autonomy based on the ethical, legal, and biomedical principle of autonomy, the authority over decision making about what happens to, through, within, and about one's body. Autonomy is characterized by the processes of communication, comprehension, voluntariness, and consent, or the refusal of the recommended clinical plan, which is examined in detail in Chapter 5. For this chapter's purpose, I examine the rhetoric and reality of protecting and pursuing bodily and decisional autonomy through textual analysis of the lived experiences of Black mothers navigating childbirth hospitalization. According to 36 Black mothers in Oakland and Los Angeles, the shared meaning of autonomy is having the right to make independent decisions about one's body, pregnancy, baby, and care, based on having access to comprehensive, accurate, and scientifically and culturally relevant, rigorous, robust, and responsive information, options, resources, choices, and optimal conditions. A Black mother's autonomy is shaped and strengthened by self efficacy. Again, the individual belief in one's capacity to achieve a desired goal or make a decision. Black mothers also feel that autonomy also includes the right for their expressed desires, expectations, concerns, and needs to be acknowledged and fulfilled by the healthcare profession, system, teams, and individual clinicians and staff. For autonomy to be optimally actualized, Black mothers expect health systems, teams, and individual clinicians and staff members to recognize and include their peers, partners, and support persons in the care provision, interactions, communications, decision making, and consent or refusal of clinical advice and treatment. Black mothers view their community support persons, any person without hospital affiliation or alignment, as advocates, shields, and negotiators who can ensure that their birth experiences align with their birth expectations, prevent or mitigate any potential harm, and address social isolation, neglect, and abandonment. Black mothers identify three core behaviors or conditions that actualize, protect, or optimize their autonomy, which can be measured, monitored, and managed in hospital based obstetric policies, processes, procedures, and practices. One, knowing about and having access to and utilizing a full array of laboring, birthing, and postpartum options and choices, including diverse and inclusive information, education, and direct care services and supports. Two, independently given permission to participate as the patient along each step of the way during care provision about one's body and baby during pregnancy, labor, and the immediate postpartum. Three, being an active participant with voice, lived experience, wisdom, and power in every social and clinical interaction, communication, counseling, decision making, and documentation and dissemination of care information in patient signouts, patient handoffs, safety huddles, and paper and electronic records. The synthesis of the shared meanings and measures for bodily and decisional autonomy in the provision of hospital based obstetrics care established five overarching themes or manifestations of activating or violating Black mothers' autonomy. One, seeking information outside of the hospital health system or medical industrial complex as a practice of advocacy, protection, and preservation of self as a Black woman during care access and utilization. Two, obtaining written or oral communication about birth preferences, expectations, visions, options, and opportunities for chosen birth attendants, spaces, places, positions, partners, and practices. Three, navigating coerced or forced care. Four, activating or amplifying agency or self efficacy. And five, questioning or rejecting the presence and or participation of learners in care provision. Black mothers explain the various strategies they implemented to protect and preserve their humanity during anticipated or actual threats to their autonomy. For example, they asked clarifying questions. They sought out the professional support and protection of a doula, or utilized assertive communication when feeling unsure, neglected, ignored, or dismissed during care provision and decision making throughout pregnancy, labor, birth, and immediate postpartum. In chapter two, the reader learned about Felicia, a Black mother in the Los Angeles focus group who previously encountered and navigated the uninterrogated belief held by an Asian woman OBGYN physician with no prior experience caring for Black women in her practice, that Blackness is pathological and that the combination of Blackness and pregnancy leads to death and dying, or disease and disability. At the time of her pregnancy, Felicia described herself as a full bodied Black woman existing and thriving with no pre existing social or medical comorbidities common to pregnancy and Black women during pregnancy, such as hypertensive disorders of pregnancy, pre pregnancy or pregnancy induced diabetes, sickle cell trait or disease, sexually transmitted infections, or including HIV. Felicia. Okay, this is an Asian woman, OBGYN physician, who was like, just she literally just kept telling me no. And I'm like, how do you tell me no? I'm pretty sure I'm in control still. This is the way I want to do things. So she was pushing the C-section. So I looked up her C-section rates and they were extremely high. And I read a lot of reviews regarding to it was like because I actually did research, but the doctor and I asked for but the doctor that I asked for wouldn't take me because I was so far along. So they gave me this person that I ended up delivering with. Me, Dr. Scott. So how did you know to look up her C-section rate? Shanice, another Black mother. That's so good. Felicia, the Melanin Moms group. Once I give the information on how to, that you don't have to put up with the situation that you're in, you can, kind of do research for the doctor that you want and kind of try to leave, find a new doctor, as long as you're within your insurance. Like, so I have private insurance with my job. I'm going to pause and just say it was important for me to put dialogue in my book and not just excerpts because I wanted you all to see how I had to come out of the objective part and really be part of the conversation because I wanted to really understand how a black mother knew to do this. And again, this is 2019. This is not 2020. This is pre-pandemic. When Felicia felt ignored, dismissed, and disrespected, one of Davis's six dimensions of obstetric racism, she decided to seek out and gather additional information about the professional conduct and reputation of the Asian OBGYN physician. The persistent violations of decisional autonomy prompted Felicia to investigate whether the Asian OBGYN physician had a prior history of violating the autonomy and agency of other patients. The acts of looking up cesarean birth rates and patient reviews of individual OBGYN physicians revealed clinical behaviors and practices that misaligned with Felicia's expectation. Likewise, seeking additional support and guidance from the Melanin Moms group further activated and strengthened Felicia's autonomy, agency, and self efficacy. In response to anticipated and actual violations of her bodily and decisional autonomy, Felicia gathered information from multiple sources outside of the health system and changed positions. Her response perfectly aligns with one of three responses to obstetric racism as defined by Davis: racial reconnaissance, which describes the Herculean efforts made by Black women to avoid or mitigate racist encounters, including being hypervigilant about procedures and finding providers. I'm now going to I'm going to talk about, you already know about birth plans. I want to talk about what Angie said, the way she utilized her birth plan. And then I'm going to go to the story with the Black father, and then I'll stop and see what we can talk about. And if other things come up, I'll go back to this chapter. So we have the story of Rhonda. So Black mothers shared that they sought professional information, advocacy, and support and protection from doulas. For Rhonda, knowing about, having access to, and utilizing a full array of laboring, birthing, and postpartum options and choices, including diverse and inclusive informational, educational, and direct care services and supports, activated and actualized her autonomy. For both Felicia, who you heard about, and Rhonda, Black mothers actualized their autonomy, agency, and self efficacy in refusing to participate in the medicalization, pathologization, and commodification of birth. As explained by Davis, both Black mothers responded to obstetric racism by deploying their own will against a system of control and the demands of consent to a harmful care. In both scenarios, the refusal of Black mothers demonstrated a firm understanding and choice to reject the possibility of coercion, medical intervention, abuse, disrespect, and the power the hospital systems, teams, and individual clinicians and staff members use to exert dominance over Black reproducing bodies and Black mothers' decisions. Another strategy to protect and actualize Black mothers' bodily and decisional autonomy during the provision of hospital based obstetrics is the development and dissemination of a birth plan. With a birth plan, Black mothers, partners, and given and chosen families have the opportunity, option, capacity, and capability to speak up and share their birth desires, dreams, expectations, and non negotiables. Angie, a Black mother in the Oakland focus group, introduced a colloquial expression that means the person is in possession of a weapon and they are prepared to use said weapon for protection. Angie, I came locked and loaded. Dr. Scott, In case a person listening doesn't know what locked and loaded means, tell us what locked and loaded means to you. Angie, I came with my birth plan. For Angie, childbirth hospitalization was warfare, and her birth plan was her weapon of choice. Last, I'm going to end on a story with Mariah and how she leveraged the role of her Black husband in protecting her. In several instances, Black mothers describe their husbands as serving in the simultaneous roles of patient shield and birth plan enforcer. The presence and participation of husbands during care provision sometimes manifested as a force field protecting their laboring, birthing, and postpartum wives and their babies against violations of patient autonomy and agency. Likewise, husbands also served as the enforcers of hospital actions that aligned with their wives' expressed needs, priorities, and preferences, facilitating person focused care and shared decision making, particularly for Black mothers. Mariah, let me tell you all, if that man, her husband, was not there, I probably would be in tiny little pieces. Like he was like my number one cheerleader. Like, you can do it, babe. You're almost there. And I was like, you're right. I can do this. And he was like, everything. And I think I'm going to stop there. And thank you for people who posted. But if you want to come off video, but we can use the last 30 minutes and some discussion. Um, this is one of my favorite chapters as well. So in the comments, one person wrote their thought: if Black autonomy is, in essence, Black power, Black autonomy compromised leads to the growth and movement of the Black community as a whole being threatened. Yes, yes. When you compromise Black autonomy, this is what happens. And another thought: before Black babies can even enter the world, they are placed under threat through their mother experiencing obstetric racism at the hands of medical personnel. The Black community deserves a chance. Absolutely. So brother Ken, your thoughts, and other people, please feel free if you want to come off of camera, if you want to add questions. But I at least want to share their part in in chapter 4, which I think will provide you all, not this group perhaps, but other people, just other ways in which bodily and decisional autonomy can be activated, actualized, affirmed, amplified, but also how it can be violated in so many ways, especially right with that the language of always saying Black women who get pregnant, Black people get pregnant, right? You at risk, fill in the blank, and now sign up for your induction or your C-section. Brother Ken.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. Thank you for this book, because I think for me, knowing you, it represents your courage and your commitment to putting
Oh,
together in a book, right? You could have kept this to yourself, kept it in just papers or whatnot, but you made
yes.
that commitment, which is sacrifice. So thank you for the sacrifice and for
Oh,
reading tonight. I think this is I'm getting through the book. But this
yes.
is what I think going to be my favorite chapter as well, because and thank you for including the dialogue, because it's so helpful for context, and especially
Yes.
when I think about the partners, because so often as I hear some of these stories, and I've heard use some of your stories before,
Mhm.
I often when we're hearing about these women, I'm thinking of partners that may be next to them going through the same
Yes.
experience, right? and
Yes.
and working with these so many of these partners, you feel like just useless, and it reminds me of some of the research that I do, which is looking back in the
Mhm.
historical sense and what how they broke up families, separated families, and
Yes.
made him feel as if you have no power. And many times in these cases, when the partners or the fathers are speaking up, they're
Mhm.
then met with threats of leaving the institutions. And that's
Yes.
personal for me, because that happened to me
Yes.
when my wife and I lost my second child. She was in distress. I kept asking questions, and I was told, this is 30 years ago, and I was told,
Mhm.
sir, not even my name. Like, you thought they would have known me by now. We were there for a day and a half in the hospital, but I was just, sir, please stop coming up here, and we'll let you know. We'll call you. So when I hear stories today of partners and fathers, the same thing, whether it's Charles Johnson or Amari Maynard and those, it's the same
Yes.
story,
Yes.
right? Because again,
Yes.
how they look at Black people, but
Yes.
the Black men as well. There's this threat. So yeah, so hearing this is humbling always, but it's a sadness for me always because again,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of those partners that are there that don't know what to do because this is a system, as you said, and that
Mhm.
wasn't designed for them and certainly makes
Mhm.
them feel excluded. And so it's hard sometimes to even jump into support because you're afraid that you'll be thrown out and so forth. So that was my
Yes.
first thoughts.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I had more to read, but I just was like, let me just, if something else comes to mind that I want to read, but what you just stated, I do want to lift up on page 50. I call it the Black Mother Father Force Dyad. I actually gave it a name because it kept coming up. Like I was not asking specifically Black mothers, what's the role of the father? I literally was just asking, like, what do you do to have your voice be heard? If you keep asking for something over and over again, like how do you act? How do you get what you want? And they just started speaking about like kinship. And that's really why initially kinship was called social capital and social network, and it used to be tethered to autonomy. But the more they described how they leveraged their relationship with their husband, with their mother, the Black maternal grandmother, and I gave those relationships like an actual name and named the power. So on page 50, I call it the Black Mother Father Force Dyad. And I wrote the Black Mother Father Force Dyad utilizes their experiential, spiritual, ancestral, and mainstream knowledge to push back against forced cesarean birth or other forced practices or procedures. The Black Mother Father Force Dyad represents an act of mobilization against obstetric racism permeating throughout the hospital system. And as a response against obstetric racism, resistance is deeply grounded in a vision of how a Black mother, her partner, her parent, and any other member of the Black mother's given or chosen kinship desire, dream, and deserve to be treated by hospital systems, individual clinicians, and staff members. That's where I would have ended today's reading. And kinship is so powerful, but yes, that is why I had to like give it another name that better represented the relationship, the power, how it's utilized, how it's leveraged. And it is grounded in like back to like it is grounded in the sacredness, the sanctity of our humanity, but it is our power. And if folks are wondering how to increase the presence and participation involvement of Black fathers, this is it, but the system may not tell you that. But so that's why it's important for these readings and these conversations and what Brother Ken does and what you all also do. These are the forms of resistance and refusal and racial reconnaissance that Black mothers are utilizing. So it would make sense when I think back to what Charles Johnson shared when I first met him in 2019 on stage in California through Health Hollywood and Society. He was talking about how he knew he needed to speak up more, but like you said, Brother Ken, but he also was reconciling or navigating with the fact that the more he would speak up to protect um, his wife, Kira, that he could be removed from the hospital system. So he actually was balancing between asserting his power as a man to protect his wife and unborn child. And then after the fact, right, just her when she was bleeding throughout the whole time, or silence himself so he could still at least be present, even in her passing, he at least would still be in the hospital. That's a daunting thing, right? To
Hmm.
experience where you're choosing between activating your innate role to be a protector,
Yeah.
but also being that the more I protect, I could be thrown out. And if
Hmm.
she does pass, I'm not there with her in presence to still protect her in that transition.
Hmm.
That blew me
Hmm.
away.
Mhm. And it's interesting with Charles and just, in relationship with him when he talks, or he talks about still having that feeling now. He has to watch
Mhm.
his boys grow without their mother and telling the story,
Mhm.
but he also is carrying with him almost a guilt, if you will, right? Should I have
Mhm.
gone up one more time kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that is pretty powerful. But again, and as you were saying and throughout the book, this is about our community because what's happening to
Yes.
her is happening to the children, happening to the partners, happening to the mother.
Yes.
We're all carrying this. And so So when I hear
Yeah.
him talk about that, I'm like, yeah. And so now he has to watch it as he's raising these two boys by himself. But that should I have gone up one more time kind of thing because he was wrestling. Should I go up one more time or not? So
Hmm.
yeah, it's heavy. It's really heavy for us.
It's heavy. And I think I am just so very grateful, like you were saying before, that when I think about why it's so difficult for me to get employed, I think about the fact that I have what I felt was the pressure to get the book done, right? Because these are interviews from 2019, but I felt obligated to 36 Black mothers and birthing people in Los Angeles and Oakland, and to the local Black women's community-based organizations throughout Oakland and LA who helped me to gather these data in 2019, 2020. It was that sense of urgency to make sure I did well enough to honor their stories. But the other part is I realize how what holds us together in community through our kinship ties, right? The way we leverage our kinship for protection, for love, for support, for identification, for validation, for a sense of a vision of who we are and who we want to be. Kinship activation and kinship violation must be performance metrics in hospital settings, right? And that's the biggest lesson that I hope to impart to you all is that the patient-reported experience measure of obstetric racism is the only validated scale, I believe I can even say in the world, that recognizes kinship activation or violation as a key performance indicator of quality, safety, and equity in childbirth. No other scales utilize that. So that goes on to show you how they know there is power, right? In preserving our kinship ties and making space for chosen and given kin to be present over learners. And that also came up a lot with Black mothers and birthing people that they would be, particularly as they were moved or transported to the operating room, they desperately were seeking their husbands. What they would see, what they would encounter and experience and feel were all these strangers plus learners. And they're like, how do you prioritize the people who I don't love, I don't know, I don't trust? I didn't consent for them to be in here. Like, so bodily decision autonomy is so very important, but it can be protected, it can be violated in so many ways. And some of them, I said they're insidious because there's this assumption, right, in hospital systems that if you're a teaching institution, and I used to be that way when I was in teaching, when I was a resident, like I should be there, but no, it is a privilege to be there, but it's also the right of the patient and their family to consent to you being there continuously. And if in that moment where they must now undergo a major abdominal surgery to bring forth
Mhm.
life, and everybody else is in the room but their partner, but their
Mhm.
mother, but their bestie,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? That goes to show
Mhm.
you how violent and degrading and dehumanizing
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, if
care
I yeah.
standards are, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. Can I add to that tonight for the
Yes.
listeners tonight? I think just to think about also, because again, for the kinship care, right? The father that's there, and I feel when I was there, I wasn't just trying to protect my wife, I was also advocating. As I said, we had this birth plan. I want
Yes.
you to honor what she said to you. I want you to hear her. So again, don't they're dismissive anyway, but don't just dismiss me because you think I'm being Mr. Protector. No, I'm actually advocating. I want you to do what she wants to be done. I'm here to represent that. And so, to your point, to be disregarded and not valued for that, it's not
Yeah.
it's actually hurtful because it
Yes.
really hurts because you're yeah it's pretty powerful. So yeah, we're not just protectors, but we're advocating and kinship. The
Yes.
mom's trying to advocate, not just that's my daughter or what. No, it's I want you to listen to what she's saying because she's
Yes.
told me what she wanted. And I want to make sure she gets what we've agreed
Yes.
to. So that piece, that advocacy piece, is so important too.
Absolutely. And again, that all came from asking Black mothers in these focus groups, like, how do you know that what you desire and expect is going to happen? And that, birth plans, husbands, their mothers who are also in the book, you'll see some of the Black mothers' mother, right, the maternal grandmother, they were doulas. So imagine being right? The kinship person. And you also have this other, like you can, like you also have this other professional role that is also informing your understanding of what's happening in real time. So the threat to the system, right, escalates because now you're not just a loved one who's protective, who's advocating, but you also have the language, right, and the knowledge and the science, and you understand, and you can speak to them in their coded language. And we've seen how that the level of violence increases, right, when the patient or the kinship, the kinfolks also have some understanding, some language around maternal and child health or birth or human rights, right? Or they're, to say to someone, did you ask her if she wanted the IV? Like to that can be it can be perceived really as a well, that's not the word I should use, but I can see how a nurse, I'm laughing, or a senior nurse or a senior resident or an attending could be taken aback by someone saying, do you have the right to do that? And they're like, that's my job, that's my role. You came to the hospital. I'm supposed to do that. But that goes to show you how again, these people don't teach us about, I can't say they didn't teach me. I went to medical school that was very much into like consent, refusal, honoring the patient. That's why I went there. But some of the medical schools and residency programs don't really teach students, their learners, about informed consent and informed refusal. Um, it's all about doing what, the medical or clinical advice. And if you go against that, then you are the problem, right? And so that allows for some of these hospitals to then call the district attorney or the assistant district attorney and revoke the rights of the mother, right, to the fetus. So now the hospital becomes the guardian of the fetus so they can assert their medical clinical plan. And that happened to me my first year out in private practice in the suburbs. A patient and family were declining a cesarean birth as the fetal heart tones were were showing compromise in oxygenation, right? In the capacity of the placenta to provide optimal oxygen to the fetus. And they said no. And so we went through everybody, right? The charge nurse, the nurse administrator on call, the COO, they called the ADA, and they were about to initiate the legal paperwork to remove the mother's right to the fetus to make decisions. And because of how I was trained in medical school and residency, I said no, even if you assume like legal guardianship of the fetus to make decisions, right? Bodily decision autonomy over the fetus, I will be charged with assault to the mother. So I'm so glad I knew that 19 years ago as a young attending less than 1 year out of residency, because I imagine today other young attendings are probably just doing it, and so that's assault.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that too, because I know that I've had the blessing of um, teaching residents around racism and equity, like for several years, right? Each, like at least four
Mhm.
different classes. And you're absolutely right. They do not cover that at all. Informed consent, they don't. And so it was great that you knew that, but just to be acknowledged that today, folks are coming out and they don't know
Oh,
and don't do. So that assault is happening all the time.
and then the community, which is why I was deciding to do these public, virtual, free readings, because I do want to build the public's capacity to better understand and assert their rights, and that they know they have the right to refuse care, even if it's the standard of care or represents the most robust published work. No means no, still means no. And that no does not then catalyze a series of retaliatory actions like, you know, further harming you. Like, we've seen how when Black mothers and Black fathers say no, that all of a sudden starting the IV or doing the ultrasound probe, like people start to treat their bodies. It's no longer like a tender experience, right? They start pressing harder with the ultrasound probe, or they start placing the IV and just being really aggressive and forceful with these instruments. as a way for them to subject that person to pain because that person didn't agree with them or assert themselves. So I just want the public to be aware that it may be normalized to do that to Black people. And so therefore we hear other people experiencing that. That's still a violation of quality, safety, and our human rights. I just want the public to be able to know this, listen to these series, and just be better able to call out the harm and then also know what resources are available out there, which I always uplift Elephant Circle, If, When, and How, Pregnancy Justice. Like there are advocacy organizations and organizations who focus on the legal rights um, to better protect our family and our chosen and given kin who are also there with us. If anyone else has any other comments or questions, that's all for me. Thank you so much, Brother Ken. Um, The next chapter, chapter 5, is communication and information exchange, which goes into more around informed consent, informed refusal, and how, the games that they play, the warfare that they impose on our community around violating, right, our right to say yes, but also our right to say no, and how even when we are given consent, if they're not assessing our comprehension of what's being told to us, then it's not really voluntary. It's not informed because no one's asking our communities to like repeat back to me what you understand to be what's going on with your body or this procedure. And I've done that. Even Black folks are like, I just trust you. I just do. I'm like, no, 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 no. I said, please tell me what you understand. Even if you must sing it out, you must rap it out, dance it out, refer to a lyric or a movie title, but it's very important that the healthcare professional takes the extra effort to ensure that our community understands what's being done and how they've been diagnosed. And when they don't do that, that is a violation of our informed consent right. So I appreciate all of you all for staying later. The recording will be available. We're going to upload it to our what is it? Our YouTube channel. I'm going to stop sharing. Um, Julie, if you can put in the chat the link to the Birthing Culture Rigor YouTube channel. The book is now being available from Bloomsbury, no longer Lexington Books or Rothfield and Littleman or Rothman and Littlefield. Bloomsbury took over. It's still a huge textbook, like higher ed textbook price with now only a 20% discount. I do plan to talk to them to see if they're going to offer it in a paperback, which will bring it down to that, you know, 20 something dollar price versus the 120. But I appreciate all of you all, and we'll probably hold session 5, excuse me, the last week of July. And please continue to share with everybody. I think you can share with everybody to join us the next time. And if you have any other questions, you can email us, follow us on social media. But I appreciate each and every one of you all. Please subscribe, like our YouTube channel, and share the links to our recordings. Now we have sessions 1 to 4. I appreciate all of you all. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Bye, everybody.